Do you need hooks?
Yeah.
A 5-aught. I don't know where it is.
Just we got some.
I just happen to have, Tiemco 600S. I don't have to bend that up, but you can actually bend. And I use this hook all the time. You can actually bend the offset out of it without a problem. But so far, it hasn't weakened the hook at all. See, I'll bend the offset out of that. See what I did? All right, and that hook is worth 4 times as much straight. Swims like a fish. It looks like a fish 3-dimensionally. The material has good action.
It's in the sweet spot right there.
And it's very castable. It's as castable as you can get a fly to be at this size. So if you want to do that, do that. This is what I usually use. I use the Berkeley steel on plastic coated braided wire just because this is what I used to use for my blue fishing, for my bait fishing years ago. So I just adapt and see how much easier it works on that. Wrap the hook shank first. And I'll try to tie this fairly quickly because it's an easy fly to tie. It just takes time. I'll put this on. I'll put one end through the eye of the hook and for as long as the shank, and I'll bend that over. Is this necessary to do? I don't know. I've been doing it for years, and if it could do it, I could probably tow the Queen Mary with this. And put that wire not on top, but on top and a little to the side. I know I can strategically do that easily because I've done it so many times. But if you want to take a look at that and how that's put on. Yeah, do you see that? It's a little to the side, which will allow the other side of the wire to go along the top of the shank of the hook. It just, it's clean. That's all. It's clean, it makes it symmetrical, everything goes on easily after that. But it isn't necessary. And then after that, I'm simply going to tie the bottom part in a similar way, what's on the side and on the bottom, for the most part. If you aren't, if you really don't do that cleanly, like me, sometimes I'm lucky, and it's just that I've done it so many times. So I'm just used to doing it. My body does it automatically. I'm tying in is a piece going off the back so you can loop on a trailer hook. So it's an optional trailer hook. For some species of fish, you might want the one hook, and then for others, you might want, like bluefish, you might want 2.
Bluefish or tip-waiters.
Yeah, so you want 2. For some bass, you want 2. For the big bass, you usually don't need 2, but you might want to, because in case one hook misses, or one hook pulls out as you're fighting the fish, maybe that back hook will catch. Then I put that through the eye of the hook, and I'll be back about 4 to 5 inches. Usually, I'm okay there. And see, I went through the eye of the hook, and I'm bending that down through. If you want to come up and have a look at that, see what I did. And you see how the wire will be on top and to the other side of the hook shank?
You went through the eye of the hook.
I went through the eye of the hook again, yes. You could come right up next to me, on top, yeah, and you can take a look at that. Very easy. You see what I did?
I think so.
Yeah, that'll anchor this in so that wire's not pulling off. No. And I'm going to cut it off at the length of just about the entire length of the shank of the hook. Again, I do it pretty automatically just because I'm used to it. I'm used to doing that. And I'm going to tie that in the same way. Take a look at the way that lies on top, if you want to. Yeah, you can see how the wire lays on top like that. So one on one side of the shank and one on the other side of the shank of the hook. The wire itself. It'll be these are wire, shank of the hook, right on top like that. And I have room on the other side of the shank to do that. And if you like to do things in a clean way, look at how that lines up, you know. Basically, very nicely, the two on top, two on the bottom.
You tied the tag end on the bottom of the shank again, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Press.
Right, and then I'll just press the two at the end so they're close. Sometimes I'll use a pair of pliers and I'll crimp that also, but I didn't have to do that tonight. I got that pretty good just with my fingers. And there we have a loop on the back of the hook where you have the option of looping on a trailer hook. And what's so nice about that is you know, you can loop on different size trailer hooks. If your trailer hook breaks or bends or twists out or gets dull or the point breaks off, you can simply loop that off as you would a tippet. When you loop the tippet to your butt section or the rest of the leader, and it's very replaceable. So take you have white yak hair, do a cream, whatever. What I have some Devlin's blends here, made up by Captain Ian Devlin. I use this nowadays, simply because the flash and the yak hair are blended together, so it makes it convenient and fast. And usually what I like to use Mega Mushy. David Scott's Mega Mushy as my flash because it behaves so well underneath these conditions. So grab yourself some of the yak hair and get about as much as I put in my hand right there, about this much for your first clump. About that much. This is going to be your thickest clump that you're going to use for the entire fly. Everything you're going to use is going to be a lot less. Yeah, I'll take that. And I want to fly about 11 or 12 inches. The adult menhaden are 10 inches long or bigger. And I know where I am, the bass and the bluefish know that. They know that the adults are 10 inches or longer in the way they eat the fly. So if you have a school of 15-inch bunkers and you have a 10-inch or an 11-inch fly, the fish will eat your fly. If you have a 9-inch fly, sometimes they won't eat that fly. All right, so it drove me crazy at first.
10 inches looks like, depends on what woman you are.
And when I tie that in, I tie it on the top of the shank of the hook, and I'm not going to look how much space I'll use. You see that? That's a fairly narrow band, and the way I tie that in with the pressure I do, I know that's going to be in there. That's very strong. It might be something you want to be used to, and I'm going to cut that close to the band of where I tied that. This is pretty important just because I'm going to fit in all that weight. And with that Gamakatsu hook, your shank is just slightly shorter. So you got to be pretty good with this. This is one of the precise parts of the fly. Is that a squeaky wheel or is that a bird?
Squeaky fan robot.
Is it? Okay, okay, that's what it is. Just use a little bit of that flash. You won't need much at all because it's going to accumulate. You're going to see. So you're going to have a big puff ball.
So you just lay it on the top, you don't really put it around?
Yeah, I don't
If you want to put it around, you can. But the thing is, it almost doesn't matter because it's all mixed in together at the end. Then you comb it through there, and you have this. At least you know, or it looks like that. You know, it isn't precisely like that, but it looks like it. All right. So you take your. Now, did you bring some weighted wire? Yes. You have some weighted wire. Beautiful. And it is, what you do is you wrap the shank of the hook with that. I have .030, wrap the shank of the hook. You got to leave a little bit in front so you can tie down there at the eye of the hook. I'm going to be a little closer. Yeah, watch how I do this. You'll see, you can come over and have a look at the fly. Just get out of your seat, come on over.
Why, they got backwards.
Yeah, I don't know why. You know, maybe I'm neurologically switched or something. At least in this case,
It's the humidity.
it's much easier. It's much easier for me to do this and not make a mistake. You know, especially at the beginning or the end, as you saw. I wrap that right around the shank to that point. It allows me to get about 3/4 of an inch of that wrap around the hook, and you have significantly more weight because of the base. You not only have the area of the shank of the hook, but you have all that wire that was tied in on top of it. And then you have to go over and around that. So it allows you to have more weight. I want a lot of weight in this fly so that it casts well. And then I'm gonna wrap over that because now we're gonna tie in the weighted keel. Now you'll really go crazy. Right, just making it look pretty. Right? So what we're concerned about is a castable fly. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my weighted wire, and I'm going to cut in. I'm going to cut 15 half-inch pieces of this .035 wire. I'm making a keel. I'm making a rectangular box keel. You could think of a way to do this easier than this. You know, you can get some lead solder. You can probably get one piece tied on the bottom of the hook, and you're home free. But the reason I do this is because I know that it's the precise amount of weight that I want in the fly. That's all. So check this out. I mean, you can come over here.
You're crazy.
And see what I'm doing. You're going to see after this how this fly flies.
Why he fits. I think I'm just going to skip that part. Tattling it home.
How many pieces? Are you approximately?
15. If you want to tie 18, you can tie 18. You can tie, or you can tie more.
Comprehension.
You know, you don't want to tie stuff. Keels and flies really can be significant in the action of the fly. It can make the fly that much more attractive. Not only you have large profile flies, wide profile flies have a tendency to roll. So this is why I originally put the keel in the fly, because a guy named Tom Piccolo recommended, you know, he says, build a keel in there, Sedotti, and that thing will track straight. So that's what I did. I built a keel in my original flies, and they track straight. They also were one of the reasons why the fly casted so well. And even in smaller flies, in my chalk tonight, I'll go into the smaller feather slammers that I use, and the significance of the keel with that. I didn't think it made much of a difference as far as the action goes until I had other people come back to me, guides and stuff, and they're the ones who alerted me about this stuff. You know. So, as you see. Now check out where I can lay those 5 pieces just like that next to each other like some logs. You see my base is wide enough so that they fit right on top, or more accurately on the bottom of the shank of the hook. You see that? So one thing in the fly leads to another. One step leads to the next, especially when I tied this and when I do tie it with feathers, because with feathers I'd have the thick stems of the feathers, and they would fit in precisely at different points. So I've got 5 that I lay down, and I'm doing this at the back of it, and I have some space left there over my first tie. I'm going to tie in another clump of material at that point, simply because I'm going to high tie and low tie, clumps on bottom, clumps on top, to give me the wide profile effect. Yeah, mine should be half an inch
That's a
long.
.03, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've done it enough where, and I've measured it.
No, I think
I hadn't measured it in years, or 4 years. Then one day I just measured it and said, "Wow, they're half an inch long." Okay, that's
35
that's pretty good. Yeah. If you use .030 wire for the whole thing, you're really okay. I want it a little heavier because I want the fly a little heavier than I want it lighter. I know it'll cast better like that. Everything doesn't have to be real precise, but I end up tying my flies pretty precisely. Again, I've tied this many times.
Thank you.
And I use the Gamakatsu octopus hook a lot, and I also use the the Timco 600 SP sometimes too. I like both those hooks a lot.
Pretty heavy hook in itself.
Oh, okay,
Just
yeah,
looking at
you
technique.
wanna, yeah.
I'm just trying to get the technique.
Take a look at how,
Yeah, I see. I
I have
see.
room in the front
Yeah.
and I have room in the back. It's the first time you're doing it. I know this. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take less material and I'm going to put it, and it's gonna be shorter. I'm gonna tie it in right there on the bottom of the hook shank, right above where I tied in that first clump. And it's behind the keel. That's why I have that space behind the keel. If you want to come up and look at this close, you can. That's why I recommend, it's hard of seeing it from a distance. I think it is, but I don't know that for sure. And I'm simply going to cut that off. I'll cut that off like this. And I'm going to tie that in. Any way, it's okay. I don't care if I have some odd ends sticking up there. Doesn't really matter as long as it's anchored with the thread pretty well. I'm just tying it over, I'm wrapping it over that first clump. That one was on top of the shank. This is on the bottom of the shank. But you see it on the bottom because the hook's upside down. And that's it. You tie in shorter yak here. See how much shorter that is? What that'll do, it'll give me that tapered effect. Yes. If you don't get the tapered effect, you can always trim it with your scissors on the finished fly, if you want to. And you can trim yak hair, even though I think yak hair is natural. No, turn it. Now, and after you do that, you can just turn that hook over, and we're going to tie some material in on the top of the shank. And you can use some pink if you want to, or you can use some yellow, or you can use some cream again. On this one, I think I put some, yeah, in this one, see, I put some pink in there, and that's a nice effect. You know, do the fish really care? I don't know. You know, probably not. I mean, really, when you get down to it, but it looks pretty. You know, so you can put some pink in there. I see I used significantly less material than I did on the first clump because the stuff really accumulates. Maybe I'd like a little more than that, but I think it's okay. Because it can accumulate into a very fat fly very, very quickly. On top and behind a little bit. Pull it out, taper that a little. Yeah, see, I'm maybe about the same distance as I was for the clump below that. Maybe. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to put that in right about there.
For the sake of argument, mid-keel.
Just behind mid-keel. Say a third up the keel. About a third up from the back. Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll go to the bottom of the fly after you tie that in. And we'll tie in another clump. So all I'm doing is tying clumps of material up the shank of the hook. That's all. The more clumps of material you tie in to a point, the wider the profile of the fly. The fewer you tie in, the narrower the profile. So if you're going to tie a herring, say a blueback herring imitation, you'll have fewer clumps, fewer steps. Consequently, you'll have a narrower fly. If you tie a sand eel, a sand launce that's big, you'll have even fewer clumps because that's a narrower bait fish. Same thing with a mackerel. You tie a mackerel, you know, mackerel's narrow. You tie a butterfish, maybe you'll have more clumps, more steps, you know, because that'll be an even wider profile fish than the menhaden. So you can govern your profile through the amount of clumps you tie up the shank of the hook. If your material isn't too soft, if it's very soft, like it's made out of Flashaboo, it's really not going to matter because everything's going to collapse narrow. But if it's got some sort of rigidity, like your bozo hair, like your yak hair, it will have that effect. You know, more clumps, the wider, it'll bounce up, you know, and give you a wider profile. And so now get some of that flash, just a little bit, and put it right underneath where you tied that clump in on top, on the bottom of the shank of the hook. Just tie a little bit of that in. That flash you have there from Enrico Puglisi, you just need a little bit, and it'll really shine. It'll really reflect. I mean, I can see it from here. You put a little bit on, and it looks like the whole fly is flash, you know? And I'm going to tie that in underneath the point where I tied that clump in on top. And very easy. You can tie it right over where you tied in the flash. That's fine. And you see you have that nice flat top of the keel as a base to tie that material down upon. And it's really nice to be able to do that. Yeah. Okay, and if you want to, on top of that, you can tie in a little bit of flash also, or maybe a little bit in front of that, tie in some flash too. The flash really accumulates to where that fly just shines right up with all the reflection it'll have. You can see in my fly, you can see the shape, taking shape. You know, I mean, yeah, I'll bet this will be 11, maybe 12. And then after that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the fly over. I'm going to put another clump on top, up ahead of the last clump, and up ahead of this clump. And I'm going to use some olive. I'm going to put the top of the back. Grab some olive and put that in right around the midpoint of the shank of the hook, right about the midpoint. Use this today. And we get that olive. Make sure that that olive, the length is shorter than the pink. We think, Mike, we'll do a little less than we did on that other fly. See, that pink is there, about that length, and I'm going to make this shorter than the pink. And I know if I do that, then my fly's going to have a nice shape to it. So now we do is we go back to the bottom of the hook. You don't have to tie flash in front of the back. You should have enough in the rest of the fly. So we're going to tie up at the front of the keel. We're going to tie a clump in of the cream. And I'm going to be just a little shorter than the previous clump.
Swap.
Thank you. Swap. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that's good. That's good there. And I'm going to tie that in right at the front of the keel.
Again, aren't you?
Hmm?
You're gonna cut it off.
Oh,
Cut it twice and-
should have said
Cut
that.
it twice
Should have
and
said
still
that
too
again.
short.
Yeah.
You're so close to that red.
Yeah. All right, you have that. So you have most of that.
See, right at the back of that.
Yeah, most of that fly.
So you were
Tied.
not in front of the keel, but at the one top.
Now, watch what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to put some in on the side to cover the side of the fly, but watch how few materials I use in order to do that. Check this out.
Stay right there. It's open.
I'm not going to use much at all. I'm going to use about this much, and I'm going to tie in right ahead of the keel. What's that, about 4 to 6 inches? If you want to come in, take a look at this. It's hard, you can't see this from where you are. You see where I tied that in? I pressed it down, so I simply spread out the material, and I didn't use much at all.
Right.
you'll see the significance of the three-dimensional shape of the fly in the end. I mean, very little material I used. Because if you use even a medium amount, that fly will puff right out like crazy. And I'll use some yellow. And I'm using very little. If you want some of my yellow, you know, grab it, or the pink, yeah, I'll use about that much, not much. And now what I'll do with it, that's pretty, I mean, very little, just a little bit. And I'll put that below that. I'll spread that out on the bottom of the fly. Now, you have to use these colors or whatever. No. Will you catch fish if you just high and low tie all the materials on the fly? Yes. But if you want a precise 3D shape of the fly, this helps. There you go. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I mean, that's very, like, no material. But it's significant, you'll see. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll take a little more. I'm just going to do the exact same thing on the other side of the fly. Excuse me. Yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you see on the fly and you look over the top, you'll see the three-dimensional shape, and like that is really, it's pretty good for the size of the fly. You know, it's more like a menhaden. It isn't real fat. It's amazing.
Material inside.
Yeah, just using a little bit is significant. You use a little more than that, and it really puffs out. Makes it that much more difficult to cast, and it just doesn't look like the natural bait. You know, I had to cut down repeatedly years ago, you know, when I originally tied it, because you wouldn't think that it has the effect that it does, you know, that when you have so little material having such a big effect, but it does in that case. But, so, what I'll do is I'll tie in front and the bottom, put this one.
And that'll be in front of the keel.
Yeah, this will be the one in front of the keel. This will be right at the head. Whoop. This will be right at the head, in front of the keel. And I'll spread that out to.
You need to. No, I'm out.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to put that in on yours really. And I'll put that in there, and I'm good. I'm pretty good there, so I can just tie that in. And I can cut that off. So you want to take a photo of it. There you go. We'll see it on YouTube tonight.
No, he's going to email it to me.
Oh.
Well,
And,
that clump was distributed around the bottom half.
yeah, yeah. You know, to be pretty, that's all. I mean, does it really make a difference in fish catching?
Well, then you're
Probably
gonna
not.
fish over with another couple on top and do the same thing, right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, that'll be green.
Yes, exactly. Yep, I got that. And you see the accumulation of the materials. If you put too much ahead of that first clump, which has to hang out at the end by itself, your fly really gets thick, it gets too thick. And I'll use some of this.
This thing breathe in the water?
Yeah, yeah, it's got real good fishy looking action.
But I mean, will it breathe?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so. But it'll. Okay, that's good.
Oh, he's putting in another clump on top.
Yeah, this is
Over the other one.
yeah to finish it off. All right, one more clump on the bottom. I'm gonna That's cool. All right. And all I have to do there. You see what I did with my fly, how it was significant, how long the keel was, especially going into the front, that I had some space in there, so it allowed me at the end to get my materials in and then get a nice small head of the fly in there, and where I can get a nice shape. Yeah, that's all. Oh, I wrap a lot.
Are you using any special thread, strong? or
No,
thicker?
Danville's flat wax thread. I've used it my entire tying life. You know, I've used some monocore at times also, but most of the time I stick with the flat wax, and it's worked very, very well for me. You know, I like that it stretches and it'll really grab that material and keep it in place. That's what I like. Okay, and so you see, that's the finished fly with that. And as you see, you know, I mean, that's got a nice wide profile shape,
yeah.
a shape in there. It's got the
Got a lot
shape
of
of the
material.
shape of the bunker. Yeah, it's got a lot of material, and you can see three-dimensionally. It's got what I think is a good thickness for a menhaden for a fly like this. You know, it's proportional. It'll push some water. With a fish looking up from the bottom, it'll have the shape of a menhaden, and it won't be too narrow. And it won't be too narrow. It's got that shape.
flares out.
Looking up, yes. It's got that shape of menhaden. I think that's very important. And it's got the shape of, you know, generally the menhaden.
Now, if that was, his, you can actually shape that a little bit with a pair of scissors.
Sure you can, yes, absolutely. You can trim it to the shape you want in the end. You know, my challenge has always been to where I don't have to do that. That's all. And again, I've tied it so many times. You know, I could do this virtually in my sleep. You know, so the proportions will just come out naturally, virtually. Yeah, in like that. And should I put the eyes on? Usually what I would do is I would take goop and I would just put some goop on the back of the eye and try to press it on, whatever. And the way he did this in a precise way tonight, it worked better than anything I'd ever done. You know, it fit in there so easily. You didn't have it squeeze out the side much, and it went right to the base of the fly.
He's a good
And
meister.
where he is the goop meister, that's fine with me. I'll take that. And the other thing that's nice about real big eyes is you have
Mike's
lots of
the goopster.
area to put your goop on.
Mike's Goopster.
You know?
Where he got that from?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, look at that. I mean, it just goes on, and I can press it down. It goes right to the base, just the way I always wanted it to. You know, learn something new all the time. You know? You think you knew. You see on that side. So this is the way I'm going to start. I'm going to start doing it from now on.